Okay, we're ready for our next speaker, and I think Daryl and Machias have joined us. This will be Daryl and Machias Marks from the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff. Please go ahead.
Yate, she nas tejtapa ado nakaida na bashchin kitlachini dash che ado ashi dash mele tona halid na sha ado kwa kintlana dashagan. Today it's just me right now. Machias is still finishing up his class over at the university, so sorry we couldn't be the dynamic duo. But really appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you. Really hoping that as we continue to talk about these things that matter, that we have an opportunity to share, just the significance not only of this day, but also just recognizing that, in this continued effort of living and existing, that we recognize not only the earth as the provider, but also recognizing her as the mother that takes care of all of us. And that, coming from the culture that I do, being Navajo, and understanding that, in my role and my responsibilities as a male human being, that, we need to continue to recognize and honor our mother in the ways that we should. And so it's important that, some of the work that we do finds its way back, not only just into our communities, but into our daily lives, that we're being more responsible and intentional in our practices. And I hope that, when we think about the living environment that we have here, whether you find yourself in northern Arizona or you find yourself here, like in the communities of Flagstaff, especially right here next to Toko Slid or the San Francisco Peaks, we recognize that there are a lot of different things that are transpiring and occurring that impact our mom and that cause her pain. And we need to find ways to stand up and advocate and show up for our mom in the ways that we should. And one of those things that we recognize with, especially with this mountain here, is that there's a continual, attack would be one way to state it. Another way to think about that is that, our relationship, or the relationship that our society has with the mountain, is unfortunately one that is transactional, looking at her as a commodity rather than as our parent. And there are different things that are occurring that continue to impact her existence and her continued existence. And what's detrimental to that is, we look at Western society and we see that there's a lot of extractive practices that take place. And we see that when we have, discussions and conversations around like the wage gap, and we see some people in our communities who have worked for years, minimum wage or less than, right, and have struggled and have tried to provide, but they've been integral in creating the foundations in which we exist on. And then we look at, how there are even exploitations that take place of individuals, and we have to speak up and stand up and say something. And sometimes that shows up in the way that we vote. Sometimes that's the way that we participate and advocate, whether that's, we're out in the streets marching, or we're, reaching out to an elected leader, or we ourselves step into those roles and we choose to become those kinds of advocates, those kinds of representatives, and speaking up for that. And so we look at, one of the things that we can look at and see with this mountain is that, that exploitation, that transactional relationship is there, and it's reflected in Western society, how we commodify and have exploitation of our women, and even sometimes of our children. And we look to the mountain, we see, operations there that are profiting off of the pain and the to the detriment of the nature, the natural environment itself. This mountain is unique in the Southwest, especially within Arizona, because not only does it rise to the elevation that it does, but it in many ways operates like a beacon, right? It's brought people to live here in this area, in these areas around, but it's also brought weather that most people wouldn't normally think of when they see this, when they think of Arizona, right? They're not thinking of like snow or, us having to wear thick jackets in the summertime because it's cold out and it's rainy, or, that there's even trees. Most people think Arizona is desert, it's a cactus, and so on and so forth. But, knowing that this mountain in this area is quite unique and it brings life to it, not only just you and I, but all of the animals and the plants that are unique to this area, and that we have to find ways to advocate and protect those other beings that exist here on Earth. And that has to be done through our advocacy, whether we're encouraging that we are more mindful in our practices, whether that's recycling, picking up trash and litter on the side of the roads, or whatever that might be. Even, how we manage our water, how we take care of our air. We're very fortunate to have this mountain air here with all of these trees around us to hug us and take care of us and take the breath that we give and give us something in return. This mountain needs that same kind of advocacy, needs us to recognize that, just like society often takes advantage of women, this mountain, being female, is also being taken advantage of, and we need to advocate for that. We need to advocate for our living spaces and all of the children of Mother Earth and all of the children that exist here, including ourselves, right?
Daryl, I have to interrupt you because Katie's going to do her poem, but can you put your contact information in case people want to find out what more is happening on the peaks and, this exploitation that you're talking about, because I hate to cut you off. But I think Katie's here. Katie Giovale is going to read us a poem about the peaks. Katie?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm Katie. I'm gonna read a poem I wrote. And I don't have time to read the whole thing, so I put a link to the entire thing in the chat, but I'm gonna read most of it. And it's about the mountain and the reclaimed water up there. And I just always like to disclose my position as a non-Indigenous person, and that I don't pretend to speak for Indigenous people. But anyway, I'm gonna read it. It's called Reclaimed. When it comes to protecting the earth, people are mute. When it comes to protecting profit, they shout, "We have a solution, fake snow." Because real snow is too unpredictable, which mutters the question, are we being innovative, inventive problem solvers, or are we playing God? Waste and justice meet on the sacred mountain. This fake snow is crunchy and stiff. It doesn't easily compact into a snowball. It crackles under our feet. It's more like hail. Made out of reclaimed water, but where does that come from? Basically from our toilets. Human shit, pee, vomit, and all of our biological waste. With our waste flushed down the toilet, aspects of ourselves go with it. The pills and substances we swallow, the hormones, estrogen and progesterone, testosterone, and all the other medications catered to our individual needs and bodies. It all goes down through intricate pipes and tunnels. Then it has multiple paths to take to become reclaimed. Already a sense of ownership is ingrained in the word reclaimed, as if the water never belonged to the earth herself, but to be claimed and reclaimed by people, like a dog marking his territory with urine. Then reclaiming our own waste again on the land we stole. Once arrived, the water that is freshly flushed, impure and dirty, with chunks of bio-waste, flows through a screen to remove some of the more distasteful pieces of excrement. Organic and inorganic waste is separated, placed in a clarifier for more solids to float to the bottom. Far from looking like snow, this muddy, horrible smelling slush needs a lot more processing. It then goes through the integrated, filmed, fixed, activated sludge process. Activated sludge, are these feces going to be electrified? not a scientist, and how this is activated into nitrogen gas is beyond my expertise. It is then cycled back into an anaerobic digester, first digested by humans, then redigested with no oxygen or air. Again, this is outside my field, but I'm imagining a demon from hell whose stomach is a black hole ripping all the air and life out of the slurry he drinks. The water continues through more cycles of cleaning, filtrations, disinfection, and neutralization. Now it's water, or at least it's clear. It meets our standards of cleanliness in regards to how it looks, and it meets all of the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality's requirement for high quality reclaimed water. Yay, we have this human waste turned back into pure clean water. Where does it go? There are a multitude of locations it can be hauled to. One is the Arizona Snowball, where it's turned to fake snow. However, not all the effluent makes its reclaimed existence to be used again by humans. Some of this is wasted, poured into the Rio de Flag, a puddle that has the audacity to be called a river, but we don't want it to be wasted. We should use this water. This is where justice comes into play. All the reduce, reuse, recycle, Patagonia wearing outdoorsy people cheer that we're being sustainable by recycling our toilet water. However, there is a chasm of justice between where the water is wasted and where it is intentionally placed. We are forgetting that this is stolen land. At this mountain, our guide north is sacred, not only because it is beautiful, enchanting. The peaks are their own world, new elevation, an entirely different ecosystem rising above a dry, desolate land. Its religious connotation is not lost. It was named by colonizers, San Francisco, after St. Francis, the Catholic saint. But let us not forget that over 13 native tribes presently and historically lay claim to the sacredness of the mountains over centuries, if not thousands of years. Sacredness should not be taken lightly. The mountains hold creation stories. It is a place of healing, prayers, ceremonies, and rituals. It grows herbs for medicine men. For the Hopi, it is the resting place of the Kachina spirits who live in the clouds, the spirits that bring rain for crops, water that becomes tainted when landing on this fake snow, that carries a multitude of chemicals and hormones. Science suggests it feminizes the frogs. It harms rare flora and fauna. It threatens the water aquifer. It bleeds into the mountain. It is the recycling of human waste being carelessly regurgitated into a sanctuary. Imagine the havoc that would erupt if someone peed in a pool of holy water. We're supposed to be a country that idealizes religious freedom. The mountain is the church. The water is sacred. Hence, a battle was fought between Snowball and the tribes, one side fighting for religion and protection, the other for profit and expansion. Justice takes many forms. The courts are the most privileged. The jargon of laws and treaties, Indigenous communities are not unconditioned to the broken promises ingrained in these documents. The fight between Arizona Snowball and Indigenous communities climbed to the Ninth Circuit Court. The AZ Supreme Court ruled in favor of Snowball. It denied the religious rights of tribes. Again, betrayed but not defeated by a system of justice wielded as colonial weapon. Religious freedom only goes so far until it is placed in opposition against men gaining profit, men who desire to command a mountain as if it could be tamed, and all for what? For sport, to ski and snowboard. Oftentimes, we are asked to make sacrifices to create change. Change is a necessary part of justice. If something is a sacrifice, we're giving it up at some expense of our own. I love skiing. Both my parents are expert skiers who took to the slopes their whole lives. Of course, being outside is thrilling. The rush of racing, gaining momentum as you glide down the slopes is exhilarating. But I won't go, as many other skiers in this town won't. We see the impunity and the destruction and expansion of Snowball for its corruption. Not only is it the fake snow, it's the continued unearthing of meadows and trees. It's blatantly ignoring tribal consultation. It's treating the mountain like an exploitable playground, maximized for recreation and enjoyment. But this isn't a park for tyrannical children. It's a place of worship, and we need to grow up and stop our childish attempts to control the natural elements. If justice is denied in the courts, maybe it can be made in our sacrifices. Just like the mountain, steady, prevailing, and unyielding, people have not stopped fighting to protect the peaks. Boycotts, protests, documentaries, and debates flourish around this mountain. Some are in the media, some are more quiet. Some require us to look deeply and uncomfortably at the exclusions. The history of colonialism in our town marked an unhealed wound. Becoming actualized in the present, Snowball is a contusion, a laceration on the peaks. The routes are gashes scraped into the skin of the mountain. They leak and ooze, become infected, contaminated, and drain down to be swallowed by the forest. Fake snow and reclaimed water seem, at first, to be a transformation of waste, an innovation that is helpful. Look closer. On the sacred mountain, it is a poison. It becomes a neutralized weapon, altering the natural surroundings, slowly and quietly, as not to seem suspecting. It is colonialism mutating itself hideously in concealed ways, contorting the theft of land and people to fit the present day, stripping tribes of religious freedom, stripping land. The mountain needs to be refilled, repaired, returned, reclaimed. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. That was really wonderful. And I think it's going to be difficult for Joe Shannon to follow you. He's next with the Sierra Club. Joe?
Hi, Marilyn. Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about Sierra Club and what's going on here locally. In particular, before I get to local, I want to discuss a little bit of the information that's going on with our national, we call the overarching part of the corporate side of Sierra Club, National Sierra Club. And they have offices in Oakland and, of course, Washington, D.C. And I think one of the big things that I want to report is that they finally reached a 300 mark for retiring coal-fired power plants. So that's very significant help. The other one is of the 3.8 million members and supporters nationwide is embarking on another important part of Sierra Club's mission, that's equity, inclusion, and justice. And we're all in training about this, and that's going to be basically on par or maybe even above our typical public land management. And I can post later some of the actions that we can do right now with Sierra Club, like asking the president to have all electric cars by 2030. So a lot of them are big scale, but that's what we like, is big things to get done. Locally here in the chapter anyways, what we call the state, Sandy Barr is our director. It was started in 1965 in response to the dams in Grand Canyon. And the one that was built was Glen Canyon Dam. However, they're still on the books, two more farther downstream. Congress at that time didn't like it enough that we are still penalized with a lack of ability for tax breaks. And we are not an NGO from a 501(c)(3). We have other ways of designations is what I'm trying to say. And at this chapter level, Save Oak Creek, which is just outside of Globe, the very destructive copper mine is being built on sacred land of the Apache. That's a big one we're working on right now, and trying to use the 30 by 30, which if you're not familiar with that jargon, it's President Biden's attempt to protect 30% of our country by 2030. So if these guys aren't going for the moon, I don't know, or the stars, I should say, I don't know who is. So those are two very big ones. And if you're not familiar with Oak Flat and this problem we're having, the local, or I should say, chapter website has a add up petition that you are very, very much encouraged to sign. Here in Flagstaff, the volunteers are called the Flagstaff Northern Arizona Group. We got about 900 members. Marcia Burns, Emma Beninati, Sarah King, Kate Bordwell, Anthony Garcia, and myself are the leaders here locally. We get elected for 2-year terms. There's a staff person that many of you know, Allison Gitlin, and she's the manager of Restore and Protect the Greater Grand Canyon. And right now that is also a dam related topic because of the three proposed permits in the Little Colorado River, which is about 65 miles down the river. Sadly, the federal commission that monitors hydropower has granted one of the permits to go on to a more exploratory, which means actually get out there to get wet. They're permitted to do that, which is very discouraging. So that's one that we're working on continually to fight against. Our other projects are, we sit on committees for the Mount Eldon Dry Lake Hills. Every year we go to the environment, Sandy Barr does this, the Capitol Environmental Day. So as you know, we're LD6 and LD6 crazy people get elected to. These people will not come talk to us. In 5 years, they have never met with us. And part of Environmental Day is for constituents to meet who they've elected. They won't meet with us. Yeah. But what was, forget it. There's a pretty good wolf story, but I don't have time to tell you about her wolves and one of the elected officials. We're also working on Flagstaff Trail Initiative, which is about the trail system in the greater Flagstaff area. Mexican gray wolf recovery, which is mostly in the eastern part of the state, but we have our members work on that. We also have one very local, and maybe you've seen them around town. It's a little storm drain marker that just asks people to be careful what they put in the storm drains. We do see a lot of people still drain their oil on the sides of the road. And we're working with the Rio to Flag Stewardship Program that I'm sure you're going to hear more about later on today. In the Grand Canyon region, the biggest thing we're fighting against now, besides the Little Colorado, is opposition to the uranium mining, which we're trying to make permanent. We're closer, but it isn't quite there yet. And of course, Snowball. So 21 First Nation communities have an affinity for what we call the peaks, which the Forest Service called the Flagstaff Ranger District. That is where a lot of our effort is being put right now. And you're going to hear more about that as time goes by. Sierra Club, we lost our litigation for that all the way to the Supreme Court. And that is why, if you've been up there lately, I call it the Coleman Circus at 9,000 feet. It's destroyed. It's 777 acres that they're completely gonna turn into a recreation paradise for the 110-degree people, we call it, when they come up looking for a place to go. So that's ongoing and still in discussion. So, in a couple of things.
Joe, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt.
Sure.
Thank you. You covered a lot, and we really appreciate it. But we're going to go on to Jesse Rodriguez with Defend Our Future. Jesse, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jesse Rodriguez. I'm the Flagstaff organizer for a nonprofit organization called Defend Our Future. And we're nonprofit, nonpartisan, and importantly, we're youth-led. So our whole deal is empowering the youth and giving them awareness and the tools to advance environmental justice and bring sustainability. We're located across the nation. We have different clubs or chapter clubs from Arizona, Colorado, Pennsylvania, Florida. And right now, our main focus, things have changed a little bit because of the pandemic. We used to do a lot of legislative visits in person, as well as in-person events, but things have moved on virtually. So yeah, a couple of the projects we've been doing is reaching out to federal legislators and senators, talking about what their policy plans are as far as what they hope to introduce into Congress, any bills, what's it going to look like moving forward. And one of our fair events that we like to do is called Defend Our Series. And these events are talking about things that people enjoy and talking about how climate change affects those things. For example, Defend Our Beer was a big one we did where we partnered with a brewery before the pandemic, talking about how climate change affects hops and barley. We would do the same thing for coffee, avocados, chocolate, and so forth. And right now, going to the summer, we're going to lay low a little bit. We're replanning a whole structure with our chapters and our clubs so we could be prepared more for fall of 2021 and work more with our college students across the whole program in the nation. But yeah, that's what we're doing. I'll leave my email and information if it's something you want to be involved with. If you're a college student and want to be involved with these legislative visits or want to help organize these events, then I'll definitely leave my info in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Okay, we have a minute or two for any questions. Does anybody have any questions for any of our speakers in the last half hour? No? Okay, then. Wait, something's, okay. Oh, there's a question from Aubrey. Jesse, why didn't she ask it herself? But Jesse, are other youth, other than NAU students, allowed to join this group? Or is it just a student group?
Yeah, so anybody really. When I say we're youth led, that's our major demographics. But yeah, any youth that are non-students or any adults are more than welcome to join and hop on in. Especially with legislative visits, we want all walks of life to hop on these meetings with their legislators, just so the legislator could see how many people actually care. So yeah, you don't have to be a student. It could be any age, any walks of life. So definitely.
Okay, thank you.